I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I am very excited to be with you weekly to introduce you to women that are change makers on this planet. They are women who are making a difference, who have a passion, who have stepped into their power and are doing things to make this world a better place. So I do these every week. We are on Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart. Please subscribe and come back every week and meet an incredible woman. So my guest today is Danielle Miyoko Furuichi. She's a graduate student in the Masters of Environment program at the University of Colorado Boulder. She's studying urban resilience, sustainability, and environmental justice. She's also founder of Furuichi Consulting LLC, providing exclusive language and LGBTQ plus inclusivity trainings to businesses, nonprofits, and other organizations. What I love about this person is that Danielle is passionate about creating inclusive and equitable spaces where people can live authentically as themselves and thrive. Danielle, thank you for being here. I'm really grateful. My friend Jamie Van Leeuwen introduced me to you, and he spoke so highly of who you are. So welcome, and thanks for making time.
Yeah, of course. And just as a reminder, my pronouns are they, them, theirs.
Right, instead of she. Right. Thank you. And we will talk about that because that's interesting to me. So, but I first want to know, where is your background? How did you grow up? Where did you grow up? Because you're multinational.
Yeah. So my dad is Japanese and my mom is white. And I was raised culturally Jewish from Los Angeles on Tongva and Chumash lands. And yeah, I just have a lot of different identities. And because of that, never really fit into any boxes. I was always, really aware of how I was perceived and treated based on how I looked. So like if I straightened my hair, or if I wore contacts or dressed a certain way. And I think, that was kind of like the beginning of my journey, just like gaining that awareness and seeing how people's perception changed based on a number of factors. And, while I identify as non-binary and queer, I was raised as a cis straight girl, cisgender straight girl. So meaning when your gender matches, the gender you identify matches the gender you were assigned at birth.
Right. Was this confusing for you?
Oh gosh, yes. It took a really long time to figure out because I just didn't have the language for it for the longest time. Like I knew something was up, but couldn't quite pinpoint, what that was for a really long time.
Yeah, well, I've had the opportunity to interact with several non-binary youth people, especially. And I actually believe that you all are on this planet to help us wake up and really help us connect to the fact that we're all interconnected. It doesn't matter what gender or what sexual preference. It's like we're all interconnected and we all get, I loved in your bio, it said authentically expressed. So tell me when you stepped out of being the straight girl family thought to they and them that you are.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a journey many, many, many years in the coming. And so, I realized that I wasn't straight in college, just, being exposed. And my parents have always been extremely supportive and, they did the best that they could raising me. I have, no complaints with that. It just, they didn't have the language. I wasn't exposed. And when I saw, lesbian people in the media or queer people in the media, one, there wasn't a lot.
Mhm.
And even then, I didn't immediately resonate with it. I think there was a lot of like internalized homophobia, just culturally, that kind of took a really long time to unpack. Um, and then my journey, I thought I was done coming out, and that continued to unfold. And the pandemic happened, and I had a chance to kind of step away from the public, literally isolating from everybody else. And it gave me a long time to think and reflect and, figure out like why I was feeling the way I was, and why shopping gave me so much anxiety, and like all these different things. And like ask my mom, I used to like hate shopping, which is such a ridiculous thing to say, but it was because I experienced so much gender dysphoria. Like I would look in the mirror and I couldn't tell you why what I was seeing was wrong,
Mhm.
but getting that language, and like when I heard non-binary for the first time, I was kind of like, and it was interesting because I used to get, I still do, at the grocery store, people were like, "Oh, thank you, ma'am," or "Yes, ma'am." I used to get so angry, and I'm like, "You don't know my gender," and I was like, no one else is getting angry, and it was just a lot of unpacking. And I have an extremely supportive partner, and they were kind of like, "Well, why don't you try this out and see how it feels?" And it was extremely liberating to kind of discover that and open my world up. And now I feel like I'm learning about myself constantly.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that. And I'm really happy to have you on as a guest because in the last few months, I've had parents that have called me with their teenagers or young adults who feel that they're non-binary, but are scared for their safety, are worried that they could be hurt, and it's causing mental distress. And so I guess I want to ask you in this moment, what would you say to those young people, because you seem to have found your roots?
Yeah. I think a support system is the most important thing. Like, find your safe space. Because for me, I go out into the world, and no matter how I do my hair or how I dress, people most of the time are going to see me and be like, "Woman," Um, and it's really helpful to be able to come back to my apartment, or, to my friend group or to my parents, and have this space where they know who I am, and they see
Mhm.
me for who I am, and they can affirm, you know, my gender. Like sometimes, I can validate it for myself, but when you're constantly hearing, you know, the gender binary being reinforced or being misgendered, it's always good to have a space where I can go back to, where I'm like, I don't have to prove to anybody who I am. Like I can just be. So number one is like, find those people and make space and make time to be with those people exclusively, so that you can get that validation. And then second, I mean, therapy.
Yes.
Find a good therapist, because it is hard work. I don't want to be like, it's rainbows and butterflies when you come out. Like you're battling against systemic issues and like a rigid gender binary that's reinforced everywhere and constantly. And safety is the number one thing. So do it when you feel safe and when you feel comfortable. And just because you come out to your parents or your friends doesn't mean you have to come out to the rest of the world if you're not ready. Like
Right.
you get to choose who gets to know you. So I like that.
Well, I love that. And I want to say I'm a baby boomer, and we were brainwashed. I mean, everything was, compartmentalized, and so to witness what is going on now in the last generation or so, it's like an awakening for my generation. It's
Mhm.
like, how do we move into places of honoring and respect and acceptance? And so I love what you said. Support, therapy. You don't have to come out till you're ready. I hope
Yeah.
anybody listening got that, because that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to talk about your education.
Yeah.
So you're getting a master's in environment. Talk to me about what that means to you.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of a long one. So I'm studying like urban resilience and sustainability, environmental justice, which is just a lot of words. But really, I want to make sure that communities are able to be resilient against climate change, because climate change is already happening. It's going to continue to happen. Even if we were to, stop everything now, it would still continue. And I'm really passionate about different concepts of justice and environmental justice. And I am really big on empowering communities, and give them the tools, give them the support that they need, because they know what they want, they know what they need.
Mhm.
And I just want to be able to elevate that and make sure that they have the power, institutional, physical, whatever that may be, to have sustainable communities.
Yeah. Well, and have you thought about, education is so important. Have you thought about how to educate the larger population that is so clueless about climate change and sustainability and ecosystems? Have you thought about that? Is that part of what you're learning and what you want to do?
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. I love to talk to people. I love, I was a teacher for a couple years, and my last job actually at an environmental nonprofit in Los Angeles, my entire job was educating community members. And a lot of times, like having not thought about climate change or the environment, in an expansive way. So a lot of people think environment, they think like the wilderness, the mountains, but in reality, like the environment is where we live, it's where we work, it's where we play, it's where we pray. It's all of those things. It's not just, you don't have to be surrounded by trees. Like your home is your environment.
Right.
And, connecting to the things that people already care about and they already know. And, I like to say it's like opening up their world, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's the air we breathe. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's and I will just say for myself, I get confused how hard it is for people to understand that if you don't take care of the earth won't take care of you. It's this there's a part of
Yeah.
me that goes, 1 + 1 = 2. I mean, so tell me, because you also have created this consulting company. What does your
Mhm.
consulting company do?
Yeah. So I, take the lens, both my environmental justice lens, but also the lens that I've gained as a human being, a mixed, non-binary, queer human being. And I've cultivated these different trainings on, how to create inclusive spaces using your language, because I think language is such an amazing tool and often overlooked. It's like the first thing that we can change, and that we have access to easily. Um, and really, one of the reasons why I developed Furuichi Consulting is because these trainings kind of happen naturally for me. I put together my very first one at the environmental nonprofit in Los Angeles, when I founded their very first Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Like that's just something I've always been passionate about, and I've always cared about that. And at CU, the opportunity presented itself again. I was a diversity leadership fellow. I created a different version of the training for faculty and staff. And that's actually when Jamie reached out and was like, hey, can you give this to my organization? And that's when I was like, I think I can do this. And he loved the training. And, I I've really noticed I've been in a fair amount of diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, and I've really noticed that most of the time they almost exclusively focus on allyship, which obviously is important, but it's also crucial, to center the people most impacted. And I know that when I would attend trainings, like I would feel drained afterwards because I'm like, this training, some of them were for me, but some of them weren't, and those were really draining to have to sit through people thinking through these things. And I want people to leave my trainings, the people who are most impacted, to leave empowered rather than drained. And then the people who are there to learn, know how to show up for people at the end of the training. So, I'm
Yeah, well,
really,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think it's important because as you were talking, the thing that went through my mind was, can people walk into the rooms with an open mind and an open heart to hear varying degrees and ways of expressing inclusivity and diversity so that they can expand their awareness? I mean, and is that what you're talking about?
yeah. I like to think of like inviting people in to think deeply and creatively about how to use language as a tool to create the environments that they want to see in the world. Because a lot of times, we can work on those systemic things and they're absolutely crucial, but that's not something, we can't change. That doesn't change in an instant. But
Right.
we're thoughtful and intentional with our language, we can start to create those spaces.
Well, okay, so this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
I invited you and I said I wanted to share you with my tribe, and you came back that there was discomfort in me using that word. Talk to me about that, and then I'll talk to you about what I was thinking.
Sure. I mean, definitely for me, I don't want to use the tribe for myself because I've heard a lot of Indigenous activists talk about how that word carries a lot of meaning to Indigenous people, and that's not something that I want to use for myself based
Right.
on what I've heard from Indigenous people. But for other people, obviously, I can't determine. I'm not Indigenous, so I can't determine whether or not that word is appropriate and who it's appropriate for. I just know that for me, um, I wouldn't use that word to describe like my group of people, I guess.
Yeah, that is so great. Well, and I want you to know that I've been in several conversations about that word. Because my background is Native American, Indonesian, African, and they all have tribes,
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
so for me, using that word is my people, my community. And what you just said about Indigenous people don't want to have that word usurped and hijacked to be used in some unconscious way. I mean, I just think it's something to think about and to be clear. And I love that you spoke up and said that doesn't work for me and the way in which I express in the world. And I think that's how we heal. We talk.
Yeah. I know, and that's the hardest thing to do, is to to speak up oftentimes because it can't be uncomfortable. But I think, when I'm being corrected or if I'm, educating someone or telling someone how I feel, it's really you have faith in them, you're investing in them and you're spending your time to correct them. And for me, if I'm being corrected, um, I'm really grateful and really thankful because that means that they believe that I can change and do better. So it
Yes,
doesn't always have to be uncomfortable.
absolutely. Absolutely. So how do people find you and the fabulous work you're doing in the world?
Yeah. So you can find me on furuichiconsulting.com if you're interested in learning more, or if you're interested in requesting an inclusivity training. That's FURUICHI consulting.com. Or you can just email me directly at Danielle@furuichiconsulting.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an interesting question for you because I asked the same
Yeah.
last question of everyone on this program. This show is called Women Awakening.
Yeah.
And I want to add, the question is, what is the importance of women awakening on this planet? And I'm going to add in parentheses, the energetic of the feminine, because I think we all have masculine and feminine. What's the importance of that waking up on this planet at this moment?
Yeah. I mean, I think the world is better when we can live authentically. And if there's anything that I could emphasize is, not to feel the need to conform to any kind of gender norms or standards, because you aren't confined to the expectations that people have of you simply because of your gender identity or expression. And I think we can all be liberated in that way. Even if you are a cisgender woman, like you can express yourself or do whatever you want. And I think the world will be better for it for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I am so honored to know you. I think you're exquisite, and what you're doing on the planet is fabulous. And I'm grateful that my audience gets to meet you and see what you represent. It's quite beautiful. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Cynthia. It was great being here.
So, ladies, I'm going to say the same thing to you I say every week. You're magnificent. You're powerful. You're dynamic. You're here to do great things. You are here to bring your light, shine your light, step into your power. This is not the time to shrink or pull back your energy, because this world is begging for transformation. I love you. I will see you next week. And thank you so much for being present.